The cranberry jelly still held the shape of the can. No one bothered to smooth it out. A bowl of boxed mashed potatoes sat cooling near the edge of the table, lumps clinging to the rim like they'd already decided to harden. No music played. The heater clicked and wheezed every few minutes like even it wasn't sure it should keep going. I slid my coat off and hung it on the hook by the door, the same one that's been crooked since I was 16. No one ever fixed it. Just like the sag in the cabinet door or the tilt in the living room light fixture. Everything in the house leaned just a little, like it was tired of holding itself up. Mom was pouring water into 3 mismatched glasses. She didn't look up when I walked in, just pushed one glass toward an empty plate and moved on. Her sweater was festive red and too bright, but her face didn't match it. The smile she gave me was polite thin, like a cashier at the end of a long shift. Dad was already seated, turning his wine glass slowly in his hand. The wine wasn't good. It never was. Cheap and warm. He didn't drink it for taste. He sipped because it gave his hands something to do. Jordan sat across from him, hunched over his phone. He glanced up when I walked in, then looked back down like he hadn't. I took my usual seat, the one next to the pantry door. It creaked when I pulled it out. No one said anything. No one prayed. We never really did. We just filled our plates and kept our thoughts to ourselves. I reached for the ham. It was dry. I served myself anyway. Halfway through the first bite, Dad cleared his throat. Then he said it. "You're a burden, Marissa. It's time you moved out." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't even look directly at me. Just said it like he was reading off a grocery list. Like it had been on his tongue for a while now, and tonight the wine gave it permission. I didn't move. Neither did the others. Jordan froze with his fork in the air. Mom let out a small breath, almost a laugh, but not quite. Then she said, "Oh, Gerald." But the words didn't go anywhere. Just dissolved. The heater clicked again. My potatoes were already cold. I looked down at them and wondered not for the first time how long I'd been setting the table for people who didn't plan to feed me back. I didn't respond, not right away. I just picked up the knife and spread a little butter across the dinner roll in front of me. It crumbled anyway, the kind that always tasted like freezer burn no matter how long you warmed it. Mom adjusted her napkin. Jordan looked like he wanted to say something but couldn't find the edge of it. I didn't give them time. "I'm not here because I can't afford rent," I said. "I've been covering the utilities, the grocery bills, that bottle you're drinking." Dad's eyes stayed on his plate. The glass circled again in his hand. He said, "Doesn't matter. It's still my house." That part was true. His name was on the deed, but the roof had been held up by other things for a long time. Things like emergency paychecks, bounced loan payments. I quietly covered Connie's credit card. I paid off in August. She didn't say thank you, just said, "You're a good daughter." Like that made it mutual. The night the water heater broke, I worked a weekend shift to replace it. When her car stalled in February, I walked to the pharmacy in the snow to pick up Dad's heart meds. When Jordan couldn't afford his student fees, I skipped my own therapy appointment and wired him the balance without a word. None of those moments were dramatic, just quiet swaps of my time, my money, my needs. No one asked for proof, and no one remembered them either. I glanced around the table. Not one framed photo on the wall included me after high school. There were baby pictures of Jordan, a wedding portrait from their vow renewal, even a shot of Dad shaking hands with the HOA president at some neighborhood barbecue. But I'd been airbrushed out in real time. Deleted softly over years. No fights, just edits. I once kept track 6 years, 7 months, and 4 days of making sure the lights stayed on, and no one noticed the power was coming from me. I bought those light bulbs, changed them too. But tonight, the room felt dim anyway. Mom finally looked at me, but it wasn't a look of apology. More like relief. Like a hard decision had finally made itself. "You've got a good job," she said. "You'll land on your feet." That was the closest thing to kindness I'd get. I stood up slow and steady, folded my napkin into a square, and laid it beside my plate. Dad leaned back in his chair like he'd been waiting for this moment. Maybe he had. Maybe that sentence had been sitting at the back of his throat for years, just waiting until I'd done enough to make my absence feel like a gift. I didn't slam the door when I left. I didn't pack with urgency or spite. I moved the way fog lifts quiet, unnoticed, gone before anyone's sure it was there. I drove back to the apartment I never told them I kept. A small one-bedroom above an old bakery where the hallway always smelled like cinnamon and scorched sugar. I'd leased it months ago originally as a place to nap between long shifts, but it had slowly become mine in a way the family house never was. The lamp by the window clicked on with a soft hum. A warm, amber glow pooled across the hardwood floor. I hadn't realized how different real light felt when it wasn't borrowed or owed. There were no photos on the walls, just the small canvas I painted on a rainy Sunday, abstract swirls in cream and moss green. It wasn't beautiful, not really. But it was mine. I took off my shoes. Set my phone on the counter. The only message blinking was from Harper, just a heart emoji and the words, "You good." She never needed more than that. She'd been there the night my car broke down, the day the ER called about Dad's arrhythmia. She knew how many shifts I covered, how much I'd given. She also knew when not to ask questions. I sat on the floor back against the wall, legs stretched out. The heater kicked in low, steady, reliable. For once, I didn't have to brace myself for a call about a blown fuse or a missed bill. The silence didn't feel empty. It felt earned. I thought of the list I used to keep on my notes app. Every expense I covered just this once, every loan I floated without interest, every promise made in the form of "next time we've got you." I deleted it without looking. I wasn't building a case anymore. I wasn't waiting for someone to say, "We didn't know." They did, or they chose not to. The next morning, I called the power company, the water service, the internet provider. One by one, I removed my name from the accounts. Gave them the new number to contact Dad's. None of them argued. They just updated the records. It wasn't revenge. It was clarity. I didn't send a text to let them know. They'd notice when the screen went dark, when the heater stopped, when the tap ran dry. And maybe just for a second they'd pause long enough to wonder who'd been holding the line all this time. But probably not. That was never why I did it. By the third morning, I'd started opening the curtains before the sun fully rose. I liked the way the light came in slow and gold, slipping through the lace and soft threads. The apartment didn't face much, just a brick wall with a stubborn vine crawling up its side, but it was mine. I began making coffee again. Real coffee, not the instant kind I used to gulp between errands. The smell curled into corners of the room and stayed there like it belonged. I even bought creamer in a glass bottle, the kind that clinks gently against the fridge door when you reach for it. The stillness wasn't lonely. It breathed. Sometimes I'd wake up and forget to check my phone. There were no missed calls, no long voicemails from Mom starting with "don't panic," but no overdraft alerts from the bank. No half-sincere, just checking in texts that really meant we need something again. I found small things to fix, a sticky drawer, a squeaky hinge, the kind of work that held no emotional weight, no hidden demand. It was strange how healing crept in, not like fireworks, but like warm water running clear after weeks of rust. Harper came by on a Thursday night. She brought soup in a mason jar and a used book with a cracked spine. Still breathing, she asked, standing in the doorway. I nodded. She didn't pry. Just kicked off her boots and settled in like she'd always had a spot there. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. She lit a candle without asking. The scent was something soft lavender and cedar. It mixed with the coffee and the soup and the quiet. Later, after she left, I stood by the window for a long time. The brick wall outside was lit by a single street lamp, and for once, I didn't feel like I was waiting for something to change. The apartment didn't shine, but it glowed in a way the house never had. Not from decoration or noise, but from the simple fact that nothing here was borrowed, begged, or balanced on guilt. Just mine. Finally. It started with the mail. A letter arrived at my work address forwarded from my old one. Handwritten. The envelope cheap soft around the edges. No return name, but I knew the handwriting. Mom never called things what they were. She asked if I still had access to the utility accounts, said they were having some temporary delays in paying, blamed the new online system. I didn't answer. A week later, Jordan texted. 3 words. Wi-Fi's been off. No hello, no question. Just a statement like I was still on call. I left it on red. Then came Harper's message. Your dad was at the hardware store. Looked rough. I didn't ask how she knew it was him. She just did. The town wasn't big, and Gerald's face was hard to mistake, always red from the sun or frustration. Probably both. Harper said he was arguing over a shutoff notice, tried to pay cash for something that needed an account. Walked out empty-handed. I imagined the house at dusk, no porch light, no hallway glow. Mom lighting candles not for ambiance but because the breaker was tripped again and no one could figure it out. No hot water, no charger for Jordan's phone, no fridge humming in the background, just silence and spoiled milk. One night I passed by the street. Just once. The living room was dark, but I saw flickers like someone trying to charge a phone off a car battery. I didn't stop. Just kept driving until their house was gone in the rear view. Smaller than I remembered, sagging a little more. The voicemail came the next morning. Dad's voice tight-low, not angry, but not steady either. We need to talk. Things got out of hand. Maybe we overreacted. Maybe you did too. He never said the words, never would, but he didn't need to. I knew what it cost to keep things from falling apart. And now, so did they. Another message, this time from Mom. Your father's been under a lot of stress. You know how he is, but you're still part of this family. Okay? We're not perfect, but this isn't how it's supposed to be. Supposed to be. Like I'd broken a rule by stepping back, but I hadn't screamed. I hadn't burned bridges. I just let the wires go slack and they snapped under their own weight. At work, I overheard one of the interns talking about a neighborhood Facebook group. Apparently, someone in the suburbs was asking if anyone had extra space heaters. The family on Pine Ridge is struggling a bit, they said. Something about their daughter cutting them off. I didn't say anything, just kept walking. By Friday, they'd sent a card. No message inside, just a photo of the three of them at some church potluck. Everyone smiling too wide. A family-shaped frame with one edge missing. They didn't ask me to come back. Not directly, but beneath every silence was a hope I might. That someone would still show up with the solution. With the passwords. With the money. With the light. A week before Easter, a card arrived at my apartment. Pastel envelope. Gold cursive. The kind of thing you buy in a 10-pack and keep in a drawer for when you forget someone's birthday. No return address, but I knew where it came from. Inside, the handwriting wasn't Mom's this time. It was Jordan's. Hope you'll swing by. We'll keep a plate for you. Ham deviled eggs that pie you like. No pressure, just family. Just family. As if that phrase hadn't already frayed down to nothing. He didn't mention the last dinner. The sentence Dad had dropped like a stone. He didn't ask how I was or what I needed. Just ham and pie. I didn't answer. 3 days later, Harper called. She sounded hesitant. He came to my building. Jordan said he was just in the area. I stayed quiet. He asked if I'd talk to you. Said things were complicated and that you're being too proud. That part landed harder than I expected. Jordan, the one I'd helped through his panic attacks in high school, the one I sat up with through broken relationships and failed classes, now saw silence as pride. My boundaries as ego. He said you're letting things fall apart just to prove a point, Harper added. I laughed, but it didn't sound like me. Letting things fall apart, I'd held them together longer than any of them knew, with duct tape loan extensions and sleep-deprived math. I didn't let anything fall. I just stopped bleeding to hold it up. The next day, I got a follow-up card. No writing this time, just a photo tucked inside Jordan Mom-Dad posing beside an Easter table. A single plate left empty right at the center. For a moment, I wondered who they thought that empty plate would reach. Was it a lure, a guilt trip, or a message in disguise I didn't reply? I made lentil stew that night, read half a novel in one sitting, and lit a candle by the window. The light flickered once, then steadied. There was no need to explain. Sometimes silence is the answer. The last time I heard from them was a group text. Sent to me Harper and 2 distant cousins I barely knew. No greeting. Just a photo of Dad in a hospital bed hooked to a heart monitor. Captioned, "Please keep him in your prayers. This family sticks together." I stared at the screen for a long time. Not because I didn't care, but because the sentence hung there like a rope that once held me hostage. This family sticks together until it doesn't. Until someone decides you're inconvenient. I didn't reply. Didn't ask what happened or how serious it was. I'd played nurse before. Sat in waiting rooms. Signed the insurance forms. Called in favors. This time, I folded laundry. That night, Harper called again. "You sure you're okay?" she asked. "You're allowed to feel things." "I do," I said. "I just don't owe them anymore." There was no bitterness in my voice. No triumph. Just air. She paused. "You ever think they'll get it?" I thought of the empty plate they set for me on Easter. How carefully it had been placed, centered, photographed. Maybe they believed that was enough. But I remembered the years I sat at that table and wasn't really there. The way they let me fade until silence was the only version of me they recognized. I said quietly, "I was part of this family. They just lived easier when I disappeared." And that was the end of it. Not a door slammed, not a letter returned. Just that sentence hanging in the air like a thread of light. Too soft to grab, too strong to pull apart. 3 months passed, then 4. Summer drifted in. The bakery downstairs opened its patio and the scent of coffee and burnt sugar returned to the hallway. I grew basil on the windowsill. It wilted twice, then caught on. One afternoon, I walked to the post office and mailed a small padded envelope. No return address, no note. Inside the spare house key. The last one I still had. I slipped it between 2 pages of an old utilities ledger, one with my name scrawled at the bottom in blue ink circled 3 times like it meant something. A few days later, I passed by their street again. Not on purpose. Just out of habit. The porch light was flickering. A new bulb, maybe. Wrong wattage. Too harsh. The kind that buzzes faintly and burns out quick. No one was outside, but taped to the door just above the knob was something small. My name, printed in block letters, on a label I used to keep in the kitchen drawer for mailing packages. I didn't stop to read the rest. I didn't knock. I didn't take it down. I just turned away and walked back through the late summer heat. Back toward the quiet hum of my apartment, the steady lamp in the corner, the basil leaves catching golden light on the sill. Behind me, the house stood still. Lights on. Nobody home. If you've ever disappeared in your own home, you don't have to explain. Just leave a single dot.